The war in the shadows, played out by spies, agents, shady organisations. It's the stuff of James Bond and Jason Bourne, except that fiction is already fact. Reality is probably less exciting, but it's always been present. Sabotage and espionage. It's the world's oldest profession. Join me, Jan Darash, for How We Got Here.
Russian interference in Europe has increased in recent months. Investigators from Germany, the US, Poland and other allied nations have uncovered acts of sabotage in countries actively trying to support the Ukrainian war effort. These have reportedly included bombings, arson, attacks on infrastructure and, in the most serious cases, assassination attempts. Earlier this year, US intelligence uncovered a plot to kill Armin Paperga, the CEO of Rheinmetall, a German weapons manufacturer that produces weapons and ammunition for the Ukrainian army. This horrifying discovery led to another. It turned out that Moscow was planning to take out most of Europe's defense industry executives. Thankfully, this plan was foiled, as German security services were able to protect Paperga's life after receiving a tip from their American colleagues. Meanwhile, Poland has seen a surge of fires that engulfed key infrastructure in flames. Poland's security services coordinator, Tomasz Siemoniak, said that while Russian sabotage has not yet been proven as the cause of the fires, Warsaw cannot rule out the possibility of the Kremlin's operatives being involved. According to him, every major fire that breaks out in strategically key areas is being investigated by the Polish security agency. Physical sabotage, however, isn't the only measure employed by Russia to try and destabilize Europe. All manners of hybrid warfare, including infiltration of key European sectors and cyber attacks on important institutions, have been reported and linked to Russia numerous times since the start of 2024 and even before. The exposure of these plots has intensified calls for stronger sanctions against Russia and a reassessment of security protocols to protect vital infrastructure. It also highlights the urgent need for enhanced cooperation and intelligence sharing among European nations to effectively counter the Kremlin's sabotage attempts.
Our guest today is Bartłomiej Kot. He is the Programme Director at the Warsaw Security Forum. Welcome again to the programme.
Wonderful to be here.
Great to have you. Let's chat about the current spate of targeted, not targeted killing, but attempted plots to target leading industrialists, especially in Germany. Mysterious fires breaking out in Poland. Mysterious explosions in Czech munitions factories. Are all these confirmed that we can join the dots and pin them on the Russian intelligence services, or are they just many coincidences that we try and impose an order on? What's your take?
During the recent NATO summit in Washington, the heads of states they talked about it quite openly, that this is actually the activity of Russia and its allies against the NATO countries. So they were linking those dots actually to the Russian secret services. So I suspect, of course, I mean they work on intelligence information. So the ones that cannot be shared openly, supposedly. But given the fact that they were as open as to actually speak with media about that, linking those activities to Russia, then I suspect that this is actually a very grounded idea that those things are operated by Russia. These are actually the activities that are certainly a part of so-called cognitive warfare that Russia is right now orchestrating against the collective West, if I may say so. So I wouldn't even nickname that a hybrid warfare. It is actually a very much cognitive warfare, the one that is right now targeted at inciting fear in our societies, so that we, as the electorate, as voters, vote for these politicians, those political parties that are rather on the side of so-called appeasement to Russia.
We can trace a history of this kind of stuff, can't we? In the West, we've had the polonium-laced tea the Novichok against the oligarchs or against opposition figures. Earlier on, I remember when I was younger, the attempted assassination of the Pope, John Paul II, Georgy Markov being killed by an umbrella. This is a standard feature of the Soviet way of doing things.
It is a modus operandi of Russian secret services. Certainly, we have a couple of those things happening throughout the history of the Soviet Union and right now the Russian Federation. Actually, UK was very much targeted by those actions. It wasn't only Litvinenko; it was also Skripal. So, and that was actually a basis why right now even the government is saying openly that the Russian activities, the spying activities in the UK, these are actually the activities that are targeted against the security of the state itself. So not only targeting the opposition figures, but it was like directly targeting the security of the state. Yes, I mean if you date it back, if you rewind the story back to the Soviet times, it was also very much the idea of the Soviet KGB. Also, actually. Part of that being inciting fear against the collective West back then. Part also a kind of vendetta against those who fled to the West. So it is very much at the core of the thinking also of the spying elite of Russia, Russian Federation. Recently, I actually read quite a good book, A War Made in Russia, where actually the idea that Sergei Medvedev is putting there in the book is that actually Russia is the modus operandi of Russia as such is inciting terror around itself, around Europe, and actions such as that are actually a part of this this modus operandi. The way actually Russia is acting against its contenders, if I may put it that way.
Is it a weapon of choice, or is it just the default mechanism of the Russian state?
I would say the latter, certainly, in my opinion. Why? Because Russia is very much right now interested in changing how the world operates as such. So it is interested in turning the table, simply speaking, in inciting the feeling of fear among all of us, in order that our societies do not feel secure. They feel obliged to also have an impact on the politicians. So this is a very much a part of the broader thinking of Russia in terms of the foreign policy. So the secret services, the activity that is also part of that being sabotage, arson, or assassinations. These elements, they become a tool in the toolbox of Russian foreign policy as such.
Interesting. It seems to be very targeted against individuals, whereas, say, an Islamic terror group would go for the mass bombing, the mass suicide bombing. Is this something that Russia would shy away from in the West? Why hasn't it chosen that particular weapon to employ? It seems to instill more. An Islamist bomber seems to install more fear than Litvinenko getting poisoned in a tea shop.
Well, absolutely, I understand your way of thinking. However, the issue here is that by targeting people such as Litvinenko, Putin was sending a concrete message. It wasn't actually very much hiding who is behind the assassination attempt, because everyone knew that this is actually possibly even the president of Russia who ordered the whole plot, etc. So it was supposed to be revealed who is behind the whole plot in order to actually the message being delivered not only to Litvinenko but also to any other person who would try a similar activity such as Litvinenko did. When it comes to the Islamist terror groups, I wouldn't even think about them as being self-operating when we discuss actually the possibility to incite terror right now among the Western countries, because in some of these activities Russia can also meddle. So right now, when we look at actually the attempts that were revealed by NATO countries, most of those people that were actually targeted from the Russian side through the people who were employed via online research or via some kind of the already extremist groups that were operating among the Western countries. So sometimes it is the Russian secret services themselves sending their officers to, for example, UK in order to kill a person such as Skripal, but sometimes it is also funding some kind of the extremist groups in the West, so that it is not directly linked to the Russian Federation.
Organised crime groups, for example, as well. They can subcontract this sort of stuff. Is it something that Western societies are afraid of? In the Cold War, we were under the shadow of nuclear 4-minute warning against a nuclear explosion, nuclear conflict. It didn't work?
In my opinion, yes. The Western societies are afraid of this kind of action because they are absolutely unprepared to this way of thinking. So at least since 1989, we stopped funding our counterintelligence services to the level that we did during the Cold War time. But we also completely changed our way of thinking about this kind of activities being even possible in the Western states. There are actually countries such as, for example, the Netherlands that almost entirely dismantled their counterintelligence services, thinking that the only kind of the action that may be there, these are actually the bombing attempts from the Islamist terror groups. At this point, we have to, if we want to feel prepared, then we have to turn back this time to the place where we actually should think about, first of all, funding the counterintelligence services properly, but also intelligence services. But thirdly, I would say even changing our mindset, because in the post-communist countries such as Poland, for example, we tend to think about those services as actually also being negatively acting against our own societies. Right now, the country, the state, should actually should employ the way of thinking among its own nation, its own society, that those services are acting in favor of the society, which is a complete change in the mindset, also especially actually in the Eastern Europe.
Just to conclude, I think you're correct in saying that as a society we have to understand that there are other societies that don't want what we want and are willing to do us great destruction.
Well, recently, Lord Robertson, that is actually right now conducting the strategic review of the British foreign and security policy, he nicknamed those countries as the Deadly Quartet, which is Iran, North Korea, China, and Russia. So we have to observe them and prepare for this confrontation.
Yes, well, I hope so. I hope we do. Thank you very much, Bartłomiej Kot, for coming on to our programme.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, do join us next time, please, for How We Got Here.